In the peaceful village of Ijule, where the sun rose gently over the hills and children chased goats through dusty paths, lived two sisters, Zina and Lami. They were daughters of a strong hunter named Papa Oro and his gentle wife, Mama Coco. The family had one small hut with a thatched roof, a cooking fire in the yard, and a big mango tree that gave sweet shade. Zina, the younger sister, was like sunlight wrapped in a smile. She helped old women carry firewood, sang to babies when they cried, and always gave her last yam to anyone hungry. Her laugh was soft and sweet, like the birds that danced in the sky. Zina is a blessing, the villagers would say. Her heart is made of gold. But behind every light, sometimes, a shadow grows. Lami, her older sister by 2 years, watched her quietly. She wasn't cruel, not at first. But the more people smiled at Zina, the more Lami's chest felt tight. When boys offered to carry Zina's calabash, Lami pretended not to notice. When Mama gave the bigger meat to Zina, Lami bit her lip. "She's younger," Mama would say. "Let her eat well." "But I'm the older one," Lami whispered in her heart. "Why do they all look at her and never at me?" At night, they slept on the same mat. They braided each other's hair. They shared dreams under the stars. But while Zina dreamed of helping the village and dancing in the festival, Lami dreamed of silence, of a world where only she was seen, only she was praised. And then, something dark began to grow. One day, the girls were returning from the market. Zina skipped ahead, humming a song she had made up. A group of villagers waved at her. She waved back, her white teeth glowing in the sun. "She's special, that one," someone said. Lami clenched her fists. "No," she thought. "I'm special too. I am." That night, as the fire crackled low, Papa Oro told an old tale. "Never go near River Aru," he warned. "It's not a place for humans. The spirits there are angry. They whisper, they call, and sometimes they take." The girls sat wide-eyed. River Aru was deep in the forest, hidden in mist. No one went there. Long ago, a boy went fishing and never came back. His mother said she heard him calling her name in her dreams for 7 nights before he was gone forever. "Even the water calabash we throw in there returns in nightmares," Papa said. "That river keeps secrets. But secrets also call to those who hide them." The next morning, as the rooster crowed and the village still yawned in sleep, Lami turned to Zina with a smile as sweet as honey. "Sister," she said gently, "Mama said we are running out of water." Zina rubbed her eyes. "Let's go to River Umo then." "No, no," Lami said quickly, lifting her calabash. "I heard that River Aru has sweeter water now. The elders were wrong. They said the curse is over." Zina frowned. "But Papa said—" "Do you think I'd ever put you in danger?" Lami asked, her voice soft. "Just this once. We'll be quick. No one will know." Zina still felt unsure, but her sister's smile looked so kind, so true. "Okay," she said at last. They walked through the forest. The leaves whispered above them. Birds flew overhead. But as they got closer, the world grew quieter. Even the wind held its breath. And then they saw it, River Aru. It was wide and still. No ripples. No sound. A gray mist floated just above it. The trees around the water leaned back as if afraid. The air smelled of wet soil, old secrets, and something sad. Zina shivered. "It doesn't feel right." Lami put down her calabash. "Don't be scared. Just fill your bowl." Zina knelt slowly, dipping her fingers into the cold water. And then push. A sharp force slammed into her back. Her eyes widened. Her arms flailed. "Lami!" she screamed. "Why?" But Lami said nothing. Zina's body fell forward, into the river. The water did not splash. It swallowed her like it had been waiting all along. "Lami!" Zina screamed one last time, her voice fading. Then silence. Lami stood still. Her hands were shaking, her chest rising and falling. She stared at the water. No bubbles. No calabash. No trace. She turned and ran. She tore her wrapper. She screamed. "Help! Help!" Zina fell in. "I tried to save her. The river took her." Villagers came running. They followed her to the riverbank, but it was too late. The river was quiet, like nothing had happened. Mama Coco fainted. Papa Oro dropped to his knees. "She was just a girl," he said again and again. "My baby girl." The villagers cried. They threw salt into the river. They poured palm oil and whispered prayers. But Zina was gone. And Lami? She was held in Mama Coco's arms, shaking. But her eyes were dry. That night, as the stars blinked above and the village went quiet, Lami slept on the mat alone for the first time. But something strange happened. She woke up coughing, her throat full of water. She sat up. The floor was dry. But in her hand was Zina's favorite hairpin, wet and covered in moss. The river may have taken Zina, but it wasn't done with Lami. The village of Ijule fell into a quiet that didn't feel normal. Even the birds stopped singing. Even the trees seemed to listen. Zina was gone. Everyone said so. Her mother, Mama Coco, didn't leave the cooking hut for days. She called out, "Zina? Zina, my light," over and over again until her voice cracked like dry wood. Her eyes had no more tears left. She sat by the fire, rocking herself, whispering Zina's name like a lullaby that didn't work. Papa Oro didn't speak much. The hunter who once brought down wild boars with his bare hands now just sat under the old palm tree. His spear leaned against the wall, untouched. His hunting dogs lay by his feet, quiet. He stared at the hills like he was waiting for someone to walk over them. "She was just a child," he would mumble. "Just a child." The villagers came every day. They brought food, water, firewood, and words. But none of it helped. What the family needed, what the village needed, was impossible. They needed Zina. But Zina was gone. Lami walked around with red cloth tied around her head, acting like she was grieving. She cried when people were watching. She sniffed loudly when elders spoke to her. "I tried to save her," she said. But the river was too strong. But something wasn't right. The people looked at her strangely. They smiled, but it didn't touch their eyes. Some nodded politely but moved away as soon as they could. Children stopped asking her for help with their games. And even the elders, they never invited her to sit with them anymore. Still, Lami pretended. She slept in the bed that used to be shared with Zina. She wore Zina's wrapper. She even began to braid her hair the way Zina did. She copied the way Zina used to speak. But it wasn't the same. Because Zina wasn't there. And Lami couldn't stop hearing the water. At night, when everyone was asleep, Lami would wake up coughing. Her throat felt wet. Her ears rang with the sound of water dripping. But there were no leaks in the roof. Sometimes, in the quiet, a whisper would slide through the room. "Lami!" She would sit up quickly, heart racing. "Lami, why?" She covered her ears, shaking. One morning, just as the sun peeked over the hills, she opened her door and gasped. There on the doorstep was Zina's beaded comb, her favorite one, the one Papa Oro carved for her birthday. It was wet and covered in green river moss. Lami slammed the door shut. She tried to forget. But the river doesn't forget. Far away from Ijule, beyond the thick forest and deep hills, was a small quiet village called Asuo. It was a place where time moved slowly, and people whispered to rivers like old friends. There, in the cool waters of River Ndu, stood a man named Dogo. He was tall and calm, with eyes like rain clouds and skin like roasted yam. He rarely spoke. People said he talked more to fish than to people. That morning, as Dogo pulled up his net, something strange happened. It was heavy. Too heavy for fish. The net wobbled. He pulled harder. Inside was a girl. Her body was weak. Her skin was pale. Her clothes torn. But she was breathing. Dogo's heart jumped. He dropped his basket and lifted her out gently. Her lips moved like she was dreaming. He didn't ask questions. He just carried her to his bamboo hut near the river's edge. For 2 days she slept. Dogo boiled herbs, mashed leaves, and placed warm stones wrapped in cloth on her chest. His older sister, Mama Effin, came every evening. She cleaned the girl's cuts, rubbed her back with oil, and whispered to her. "She's a river child now," Mama Effin said. "The water has touched her soul." On the third night, as the oil lamp flickered beside her, the girl opened her eyes. Dogo leaned in. "You're safe," he said softly. She blinked. Her lips trembled. Where am I? She whispered. You're in Isuo. You came from the river. She closed her eyes again. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Then the memory hit her like thunder. The river. The push. Lami. My sister, she whispered, her voice cracking. She tried to kill me. Dogo sat back slowly. I believe you, he said. He told her about River Aru, that it had always been strange. People said it took things and gave back strange dreams. It was cursed. But never, not once, had it given back a person. You are the first, he told her. The girl looked down. Her fingers clutched the mat. My name is Zina, she whispered. Dogo nodded. You don't have to go back yet. Let your soul rest. The truth will come when it is ready. Back in Ijule, Mama Coco placed a small lantern outside the hut every night. Zina, if your spirit is lost, she would say, find the light. Come home. But Zina was not a spirit. She was alive. And the river had not taken her. It had delivered her. In Isuo, the villagers welcomed her like one of their own. They never asked too many questions. They gave her space to heal. She learned to smile again, even if her heart still held the pain. She would sit by River Ndu and whisper to it. Why did you save me? The river said nothing. But it had its reasons. In Ijule, Lami still heard the dripping water at night. Still saw footprints that didn't belong to her. Still heard soft laughter in the dark. Zina's laughter. And she began to wonder. What if Zina wasn't gone? What if the river had plans? Zina stayed in Isuo for many moons. The people there were gentle and kind. Dogo made her a small bed beside the fire. Mama Effin brought her woven wrappers and taught her songs from her youth. The village children would come near her hut and sing softly, hoping she'd smile. But Zina's heart was still heavy. Even when she laughed, a piece of her stayed quiet inside. Sometimes she walked alone to the stream behind the hut, sat on a rock, and stared at her reflection in the water. My own sister, she whispered one day. She looked me in the eyes and pushed me. The pain still felt fresh, like a wound that refused to heal. But each day she grew stronger. Her cheeks became fuller. Her eyes brighter. Her voice returned. Still, she did not go back to Ijule. Not yet, she told herself. Not until I'm ready. Then one morning, as the sun was waking up and mist danced over the fields, Zina went to fetch water. As she bent near the stream, she heard footsteps. An old woman with a curved back and bright eyes stood nearby, carrying a basket of spices. She stared at Zina. My child, she said slowly, what's your name? Zina froze. Her heart thudded. I'm called Zina, she whispered. The old woman dropped her basket. Spices spilled everywhere. Zina, she gasped. Zina from Ijule? You're alive? Zina's knees trembled. She reached for the woman's hand. Please, she said softly, don't tell anyone yet. I'm not ready. The woman looked into her eyes and nodded. I won't. But news like fire, it finds dry grass. She picked up her basket and walked on. Zina knew then, her return could no longer wait forever. And just like the old woman said, whispers spread like wildfire. It started with a trader who passed through Isuo and overheard a name. Then a traveling drum boy saw Zina walking in the forest and told a woman in the next village. A palm wine tapper heard the story and carried it to the market. And soon, it reached Ijule. One hot afternoon, Mama Coco and Papa Oro were sitting outside their compound. The sun was strong, and the air felt too still. Suddenly, a young boy ran into the yard, barefoot and out of breath. She's alive, he shouted. Zina is alive. Mama Coco dropped her calabash. What did you say? The boy nodded, panting. A fisherman saved her. She lives in Isuo. She's alive. Papa Oro stood up so fast his chair tumbled behind him. His eyes, tired from months of sadness, were now wide with hope. Mama Coco began to weep. Zina, my child. People ran from their homes, shouting the news. She's alive. Zina has returned. She's coming back. The drums started before the sun even set. A goat was slaughtered in thanks. Leaves were spread on the ground. Songs rose into the sky like smoke. Joy danced through every corner of Ijule. But not everyone was dancing. Inside her room, Lami sat frozen. Her fingers dug into her palm. She's alive. She couldn't breathe. Her world spun. The secret she buried was clawing its way back out. No, she whispered. This can't be. She stood and paced the room like a trapped animal. How is she alive? How did she survive that river? For the first time, real fear settled in her bones. That night, while the village sang and cooked for the return of their light, Lami sat alone in the dark. The candle beside her flickered. Then it went out. Suddenly she heard it again. Drip, drip, drip. She turned her head. Her mat was wet. The floor shimmered like it had rained inside. Then something cold moved behind her ear. A whisper. Lami. She gasped and backed away. Her heart banged against her chest like a talking drum. She reached for the candle. But there, on the floor, written in the spilled water, were two simple words. I remember. Her knees gave way. She sank to the floor. Outside, someone was laughing gently. A laugh she knew. Zena's laugh. Back in Isuo, Dogo stood beside Zena. It's time, he said. You don't have to fight anymore. Let your truth speak. Zena held his hand and smiled, tears shining in her eyes. Thank you, she said. For everything. Mama Effin gave her a clean wrapper and a bag of cooked yam. My daughter, she said, kissing her forehead, go with your head high. And so, just before dawn, Zena began her walk home. As the sun lifted its golden head over the hills of Ijule, a quiet hush fell over the village. The guard at the main gate stood sleepy-eyed with his staff when he saw a figure approaching. A girl, wrapped in a simple cloth, her hair in neat braids, feet dusty from the road. She stepped through the morning mist. The guard blinked. Am I dreaming? He whispered. Then the girl smiled. And he dropped his staff. It's her, he cried. Zena. Zena is back. Drums exploded again. Children ran barefoot, shouting. Women left their firewood and lifted their hands to the sky. Zena has come home. Light has returned. The whole village poured into the square. Mama Coco ran, sobbing, and fell to her knees before her daughter. Zena, my baby, my light, my soul. Papa Oro scooped her into his arms. My child, he whispered. We thought we'd lost you forever. Zena cried too, holding them both. But as she looked around the crowd, her eyes searched for one person. Lami. And then she saw her. Standing in the shadows. Her lips shaking. Her face pale. Zena stepped forward. And the world went still. I want to tell the truth, she said softly. Gasps filled the air. The village square of Ijule was silent. Even the wind stopped moving. The people stood like statues, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. The only sound was the soft rustle of leaves and the beating of hearts. Zena stood in the center, holding her mother's hand, her father's arm around her back. But her gaze never left the girl in the shadows. Lami. Zena took a deep breath. Her voice was calm, but strong enough to carry across the square. I did not fall into the river by accident, she said. I was pushed. The crowd gasped again. Children looked at their parents. Women covered their mouths. Men exchanged stunned glances. Zena continued, her voice steady. My sister, Lami, took me to River Aru. She smiled, she said it was safe. I trusted her. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. When I knelt to fill my calabash, she pushed me. I begged. I begged for her to stop. I told her I would give her my wrappers, my comb, the beads Mama gave me. But she looked down, swallowing the lump in her throat. She wanted me gone. Now every eye turned to Lami. She stood stiff, her body trembling. Papa Oro stepped forward, his voice rough with emotion. Lami, he said, is it true? For a long moment, Lami said nothing. Her fingers twisted the hem of her wrapper. Then her knees gave out, and she fell to the ground with a loud thud. I was tired, she whispered. Tired of being invisible. She raised her head slowly. Her eyes were red and puffy. You all loved her. Everyone did. Every smile, every praise, every glance, it was always for Zina. She looked at her mother. You gave her the bigger meat, the better wrapper, the softer voice. She looked at the crowd. She was the one the boys followed, the elders blessed. And I was just there. Her tears now came freely, but they were heavy and bitter. So yes, she cried. I did it. I pushed her. I thought if she was gone, the world would see me. But even then, it was still her name they sang. The crowd stood in stunned silence. Then Elder Oak, the oldest and wisest man in Ijule, stepped forward. His staff tapped the earth with each step. His eyes were deep and sad. Lami, he said, you have spoken the truth, and truth brings light. But this truth is heavy. The river may have spared your sister, but it marked your soul. Lami bowed her head. What will happen to me? Elder Oak lifted his staff. In Ijule, we do not seek revenge. But we believe in justice and we believe in change. He looked at the other elders, who nodded slowly. Lami, for your betrayal, you are banished from this village for 7 moons. You will go to the village of Ngama, where you will serve the widows and the orphans. You will carry water, cook food, and wash clothes until your heart learns to love without jealousy. The people murmured in agreement. Tears rolled down Mama Coco's face, not for Zina now, but for the child she did not know was hurting. Lami stood, weak and broken. Then something unexpected happened. Zina walked toward her. The crowd held its breath. Zina stopped in front of her sister. She looked into Lami's tear-filled eyes. And then, she reached out her hand. Gasps filled the air. Even Lami blinked in shock. You didn't need to take my life to be loved, Zina said softly. You only needed to open your heart. We could have shared the light. Lami broke down crying. Loud, messy, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. She fell into her sister's arms and wept for all the years she had felt small, all the moments she had carried anger, and all the things she had destroyed to be seen. Zina held her for just a moment longer. Then she let go. You must go now, she said gently. And Lami turned and walked away, barefoot, carrying only a small bag and her heavy heart. The people watched in silence. But no one stopped her. Days passed. The village of Ijule felt different now. Lighter. Children sang again. Birds danced on the trees. Mama Coco smiled as she cooked. Papa Oro sharpened his hunting spear. And Zina? She returned to the things she loved. She swept the square in the morning, helped elders walk across the path, and sang the songs that made babies laugh. But she was no longer just the village's light. She was their lesson. 7 moons later, a girl stood at the edge of Ijule. She looked different. Her skin was darker from the sun. Her hands were calloused from work. Her wrapper was simple, her feet dusty. It was Lami. She didn't enter the village. She only knelt at the gate and placed down a small wrapped bundle. Inside were carved spoons, a calabash of palm oil, and a note. Zina found it that evening. The note said, I'm learning to love myself. I hope one day, you can truly forgive me. Zina smiled softly and looked at the hills. She didn't speak. But in her heart, something uncurled and stretched toward healing. And so, the river that once swallowed a secret became the very path through which truth found its way home. Zina returned not only with breath in her lungs but with strength in her spirit. Lami, once blinded by jealousy, now walked a road of repentance, learning, slowly, what love truly means. And the village of Ijule, they never forgot. They remembered that even when shadows try to silence the light, the truth, like a rising sun, will always find a way to shine again. Because in the end, it is not hatred that wins. Not lies. Not envy.
What did this story teach you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful tale. Thank you for watching. Stay kind, stay true, and keep believing in the magic of stories.